Open world games suck. There, I said it. Okay, no, I definitely think that's a bit of an overstatement, but I definitely have a bit of open world fatigue, and I feel like the open world concept has been seeping into every area of gaming. If you take a quick look at my channel, I mainly talk about Nintendo games, but more specifically Zelda. So this video will be more so based on that perspective. But yeah, every gaming company seems to be leaning into making their games more open world. So let's define what open world means. Open world games are defined as having, quote, a non-linear game world design where the player is able to freely traverse the environment, which consists of many different areas and structures that can be visited at any time. That's from Gameopedia, so if you disagree, you can take it up with them. Open world games have been around since the 1980s. Just Googling it doesn't give me a clear answer as to what the official first open world game was, but just know it's not a recent development. That being said, I feel like most games were pretty linear, up until around maybe the 2010s, when the genre of open world became almost inescapable. Obviously, I'm a Zelda fan, so from my perspective, it felt like Breath of the Wild was the game to really set it off. That game was, and still kind of is, everywhere. Up until about 2017, the Zelda franchise was almost exclusively linear. Some would even say to a fault. The game right before Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword, was heavily criticized for being extremely linear, among other things. So when Breath of the Wild came out, it felt incredibly fresh for most people. It shook up the franchise in a way that possibly could have changed the direction of Zelda forever. I mean, the next mainline Zelda game after that was Tears of the Kingdom, which, like its predecessor, was an open world game as well. This game wasn't as well received because it was almost a carbon copy of Breath of the Wild, just with a more expensive price tag. I'm only half joking. But in the case of Tears of the Kingdom, the criticism wasn't around the open world, so I guess we can ignore that. That being said, I feel like I fall into the camp that is really tired of open world in general. And don't get me wrong, I have some open world games that I love and really enjoyed. I talked about Red Dead 2 on my channel earlier this year, and honestly, it's one of my favorite games ever. I was obsessed with it, and I even bought a t-shirt with Arthur Morgan's face on it. So there's that. But most open world games don't really give off those same vibes for the following reasons. Number 1, a lot of the worlds feel a bit empty. They feel big for the sake of being big. I think it's really cool when you can tell the devs put a ton of work and effort into making the game huge and filling it up with as much as they can. But sometimes it really does feel like quantity over quality. There's so many things to do and see, but are they really worth it? Is it really worth your time to find 900 Korok seeds? And will your reward feel rewarding? The answer is no for this specific one. They literally give you a pile of doo-doo. I feel like this emptiness is physical, but also appears in the types of quests the game has you completing. Physically, a world can be extremely big and span over miles and miles. But when you're traversing between the main hubs, it's kind of barren. There's not much to do, hear, or see. There might be a random character that needs help, or a plant or animal that could be useful in your inventory, but other than that, it's a lot of walking, or driving, or riding. It really just depends on the game you're playing. And this traversal, if the game doesn't have fast travel, takes up a large portion of your time. There's been times where I barely did anything during one of my gaming sessions because I spent the whole hour walking from one part of the map to the other. This can feel extremely tedious, and there's been times where I put down the game because I dread walking a long distance. And listen, I know, a lot of these games focus on exploration, usually through traversal, but it just sucks when it's not that fun and starts to feel more like a chore, especially if you don't have that internal drive to keep exploring. On the quest side of things, however, most of the side quests in these open world games usually end up being hollow fetch quests. Someone always wants or needs something, and they refuse to do it themselves. Sometimes these fetch quests require multiple steps as well, leading you from one end of the map to the other, sometimes even lasting almost the whole entire game. Rinse and repeat. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not a big side quest person, outside of a few select games, but this is exactly why. Most of them have the main character being their personal errand boy, or girl, I feel like part of the reason these games tend to be a bit dry and uninteresting is because these companies are trying to make all their franchises open world to some extent. For example, Mario and Mario Kart World. Now granted, I'm not the biggest Mario Kart fan, but when I heard it was open world, I was a bit shocked because how do you effectively make Mario Kart open world? You spend 100% of your time driving around. What could you possibly do while driving to make someone want to drive around for hours? It wasn't clicking for me. And now with Mario Kart being about 2 or 3 months old at the time of this video, the truth come out. Mario Kart World is pretty good, especially before that update, but the world does feel a bit empty. Who would have thought? I don't know. I just feel like not everything has to be open world just because that's the new hip thing, and I feel like gaming companies have been going down that path for the last couple years. They'll make a game open world, but won't fully deliver on that open world promise. Yeah, it's open world, but is it filled with things that actually make it being open world worth it? These are the real questions we have to start asking, or else the game is bound to feel, well, empty. In addition to an empty world, the story in some of these games can feel a bit lackluster. Again, using Breath of the Wild as an example, you literally complete the tutorial, and then your main quest is to defeat Ganon. I'm sorry? What? That's it? I mean, of course, you know you should find the Divine Beast to do this, but if you didn't want to, you don't have to. You can literally step off the Great Plateau and pull up on Ganon. I mean, I wouldn't recommend that, but it's doable. And again, don't get me wrong, I think player choice is good, but when almost everything falls into player choice, it kind of feels a bit overwhelming maybe? I'm not sure if that's the right word for what I feel. Like, when I play a game, I want the devs to take me on an experience. I want them to make me feel something. Make me feel like I'm an extension of the main character, and like I'm actually adding to the plot. But when I feel like I have to curate my own gaming experience, or find the story in random places, scattered around the map and possibly out of order, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I don't know. I become incredibly bored very easily. I think for certain open world games, you really have to find motivation in yourself and the world, or else it definitely won't come to you. I think there should be more of a balance between when the world is open and when it's closed. And some open world games definitely have this balance. But with the push of open worlds in every type of game, that perfect balance is bound to be few and far between, to the point they really do start to feel like giant sandboxes. I definitely love the open world games that give the illusion of player choice and being open world, where, yeah, you need to complete this, but after that, the world opens up fully in terms of lore and certain characters, but in order to do that, you need to complete certain quests. I like when you're being led down, or should I say, breadcrumbed down a path, but it still feels like you're calling the shots, you know? It gives the illusion of choice, while making sure everyone has a similar but still unique experience. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, I think I like those types of open world games where you kind of have to question if it's really open world. I know I've definitely had to open Google a couple times. I just feel like the word linearity when it comes to video games has become so taboo, and I still don't understand why. I feel like linearity can add so much to a game, especially in terms of character and story progression. Personally, I need to care about the characters and their wants and needs in order to see the game to the end. If there's no real story, then there's no real connection to the main characters, and the game becomes incredibly boring. As I said, I'm not a side quest person, but when I actually care about what's going on, yeah, I tend to do more side quests, which I think adds to the open world feeling in an open world game, straying away from the path to either explore or get some background information on the game and its characters. But again, that's how I personally feel. I guess it really just depends on what you value in your games. If you really only care for action and actual gameplay, then maybe a linear story isn't really important for you, and that's totally fine. I'm just not sure why linearity has such a negative connotation when it comes to games. All of this to say, there's some good open world games and there are some bad open world games. I have open world games that I love, and others, not so much. I feel like there's a huge push for everything to have this open world aspect, but the time and effort in making this openness worth it isn't always there. I prefer games that have a bit of balance between openness and linearity, but of course, everyone plays games for different reasons, so I'm not saying one is better than the other. But I mean, if I had to pick, I think the winner is pretty clear. Also, I feel like I used Breath of the Wild as an example throughout this video, because it's kind of on brand for me, but I don't hate it or anything. For the most part. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. Do you love open world games and love this direction the gaming industry is going in? Or are you like me and have a bit of open world fatigue, and notice that everything is slowly becoming more and more open? I had this video sitting in my drafts forever, and I thought, why not just make the darn video? Anyway, my name is Andy, and I hope to see you in the next video.